Hey folks, this is Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. We've got some things going on here today for the Duchess of Kingston build. First off, I want to say thank you to all of you on Patreon who watch this and support this channel. Really do appreciate you. And a special thank you to everyone who's gone to our website, themidwestmodelshop.com, and checked things out and made a purchase. We appreciate all of your support. So in today's video, the Duchess of Kingston, what we're going to focus on is fitting out the main deck. We're basically going to put everything into place and work out all the little details and get everything prepped so we can move forward to the next stage, which is installing masts and rigging the ship. It's a big deal. So we're going to work on all that stuff today. One last quick comment. My old lapel mics finally started giving me all kinds of trouble and not working. And so the first part of this video is going to sound different than the last part of the video because we finally replaced that old system and bought something a little newer. And so that's why the audio sounds different now and will change once the video gets going. But hopefully it'll all normalize out. Anyway, that's it. This is going to be a fun build. There's a lot of cool stuff we put together. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, folks, welcome back to the Duchess of Kingston build. So I've gone ahead and to start off here on our main deck, I've gone ahead and installed these two ladders. You have to build them up. There's each of the individual steps and then a couple of rungs. The only gotcha is that they are port and starboard in design. And so you need to pay attention to what parts go where. The instructions are very clear though. So if you take the time to read them and get them right, you'll find that you have no trouble getting these into position. All right, then moving along, I went ahead and I installed these little guys right here, both on port and starboard. It's a two-part affair. You've got this big kind of wishbone shaped thing and then the piece of wood, and it's keyed and it slides into the whale very easily and nicely. So I went ahead and assembled those and put them together too. Again, this is another one of those let's do this while there's room to put our hands here type of scenarios, right? And get them out of the way. This is not in the regular instruction book. You need to look at your plans for this. All right, and then the next thing I thought was, well, if we're going to do all this stuff, maybe we ought to eliminate these big holes where things can fall down. The grating goes in here for the main hatch. Then you have to assemble two pieces of pre-cut wood that make up the frame. And this was very simple to do. I just went ahead and glued them together and then did a little bit of sanding and cleaned off the charred bits so that it will fit, so that the outside will be easy and accept some of our varnish, stain if you'd like. And then I left the char bit on the inside here because we're going to go ahead and install the pre-made grating, and that will go ahead and fill in the hole for us. So we'll go ahead and knock that out. All right, this is the Haas grating cover frame. We'll go ahead and set that into position next. This grating can go into place, but do not glue it yet because you're going to need to run a line down in here off of the Haas that gets installed up front. And if you glue the grating into place, then you're going to have troubles. But you can set it into position. There's no problem with that. Last but not least, we have the four-hatch grating. This ended up actually being the most fiddly one to sand and shape and everything. I think because it's just so small. But it's all right. It worked out okay. And we'll go ahead and let that set up. This grating also can be glued into place. I'm cleaning up the glue on the outside. Everything on the inside I don't care about because we're going to cover it here in just a moment. All right, here's our grating. All I did was cut it out and I trimmed the little nubs just enough to make sure that everything will fit nicely into position. You can glue this one. This is the hose pipe. You see these two big holes right there. Make sure you leave that exposed. And then here we have the main grating. So now, except for the two masts down here, our main openings on the deck are closed off and we don't have to worry about things going down in there that we don't want to. And these grating pieces, they look fantastic. They're pre-etched and done with a laser and super easy and super not time consuming, efficient. Just cut it out, clean it up, and drop it in. You're good to go. All right, pressing on. All right, this is the main mast aft belay pin rail, and I just glued the two halves together prior to dropping it in right there, and we'll clean away this excess glue, let it dry, and then we'll go ahead and drop the belay pins in just like I did up on the quarterdeck, and then when we're ready we'll go ahead and hit all of this with some varnish, and that will help to lock the belay pins in. We'll take care of our ladders and the grating and all that stuff at the same time. So now what we'll do is press on with the mainmast forward belay pin rack and this little decorative piece. Those are just two pieces of wood we'll glue together, clean up, and drop in next. Alright, back at our instructions on page 54. So I want to keep moving forward, and while this is the forward mainmast belay pin arrangement, these two holes that you see right here at the top are where the bilge pumps go, and it would be easier to glue them into position and then drop this piece into position, so I'm not trying to fit my fingers in between. So here are the instructions. It's just a simple photo etch matter. Pin the things, glue it together, and then put the parts on like this, and then drop it into place, and you're good to go. So this is what those pieces look like. We get to bust out our first piece of dowel. This is the 4mm dowel. It says cut about a 30mm length. I think that's so you have something to hang on to work with. And you'll just pin these pieces together, and you'll be set to go. This is the top, this is the lever, that's the pump line, and it would go up and down like this. Sure would be nice though, I think, if all of this stuff kind of moved, right? So in order to do that, let's go ahead and start separating some pieces. You want to clean these up. We don't need this, but we do need this guy. So I'm going to start by detaching him from the arm. Now, if we clean this guy up and put him in the middle of these two pieces, we've got an arm that'll move up and down and pivot. We just got to clean up this thing and create like our little piston connector, right? So we'll go ahead and snip this off very carefully right here. Then you're left with just this raised piece, so we can go ahead and carefully eliminate that with a file. And go down until it's just about level with the loop that's there. And can eliminate kind of this edge. Work that over. From the back, you can see there's a bit of a piece sticking in the middle we need to eliminate. The easiest way to do that is with a God hand drill bit. There's a little bit left in there, but that's okay. I'd rather have there be a little bit of excess than accidentally eliminate our loop. And then we've got our main pieces that we can work with. Alright, we'll squish everything together, pin it, put some flux on there, and add just a bit of solder or a lot of solder. I'll clean that up later, file some of that off. But now we've got our halves together. I'd like to get a little solder on the end of this pin. There we go. Alright, and we'll let that set up. Alright, I've gone ahead and attached the top plate that will go to the top of our post, and then the arm now would slide in between. And if we take a pin, feed it down in through here. So now this will move, right? So all I have to do, I think we'll just put a little solder or something on the back side of this pin, or I'll bend it over so that this thing is... Okay, I can hope you can hear me all right, because the normal batteries for the mics have gone low. So we're just using the camera microphone. But what I've done is drilled a hole here, and I've created a little flat spot. Hopefully you can make that out. And here's our little hand pump. And we'll drop it down in. The outside will be on the flat spot like that. And then it moves up and down. I'm going to have to paint all of this black. Can't really... I guess I could try and use my little system I had going before, but this will... yeah, this will be alright. It's not going to get that much wear and tear, and if it does, who really cares? So we'll apply some CA glue here and to this rim, and we'll hope for the best, right? Try and get it centered on here. There we go. Pumping. So all I have to do is repeat that, and whoop, I guess we didn't glue it. Alright, well, you get the idea. So I'm going to get some CA glue on here and get this set up, and yeah, then we'll paint it up and we'll get it installed. Press it on. Alright, here's our pump painted up. You can still see some little brass spots, especially on the little piston, and that's because, well, it's going to wear anyway, so I just left it blank for the time being. Also, as you see right here, I've got a little toothpick sticking out the bottom of this thing. I accidentally reamed out the holes about 1 mil too big, and when I dropped my dowel rod in here, they just fell down like that. So I put the toothpick in the bottom to stop it from falling too far, and I was able to control the height very precisely. I want the tops roughly about the same height as this post on the aft main mast belay pin rack. So that takes care of those, and that's cool. So forward here you've got these 2 squares, and that gives you the main mast forward gallows belay pin rack, this thing. It's a 3-piece wooden affair. The 2 pieces glue together to make up this frame, and you've got this detail front and back, and then obviously you have the belay pin rack. Only thing of note is you've got these holes down here. As you can see right there, I've made sure they're reamed out so you can see all the way through them. I think, and yes, they also exist on the aft belay pin pole. I think what happens is, so this thing gets mounted like this. I think that lines come down from the main mast through the back, through the pulley, and then you can pull it up and hook it up to your belay pin. Hold things in place. I could be wrong, I'm not sure, but that's just a comment I want to make here, that you know, ream those out, and then also when you varnish, make sure you don't fill those holes in. Now that being said, if we turn this way, it kind of looks like the pump is in the way. If I wanted to run a line down in there, we're getting really tight, especially with the masts here. So I'm going to just leave these guys loose, because then I can pull it out, run my lines if I need to, and then later on in the build, we'll go ahead and glue this into position. Now I say that, and I just realized that right here we will have main mast lines running up, and it may end up being difficult to reach back down in here where the pumps are at to glue them into position. So, gonna have to think about that. These things get tricky. I try to rig them from the inside out, but you know, the main mast, these lines that go up for the rat lines, they're kind of first, just about anything you do. So you could still get tweezers in there from the side. I think we'll be alright. I think I'll put a little, maybe I'll just put a small amount of glue on the bottom of this, so if we need to break it free, we can. I think that's going to be the move. Alright, so that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on forward to the front of the ship, up in the bow, where we've got a lot of stuff going on, and we'll, yeah, press on from there. Okie doke, so here we are back up on the bow. Right away I want to point out I put in this cleat, wooden cleat here, cleat on the starboard and the port side. I was a little confused by this. This is cleat part number 105, I believe, in the on your photo etch, or sorry, on your cutouts. I couldn't find it numbered correctly in the plans, but that's what worked out. So, moving forward here, the first thing they have you do is put together a little of the belfry, and I've gone ahead and done that. There's nothing clever about it, except that in the back there's these little, what are they called here? The cleats, let's see, the pawls. There's two pawls, and those will attach into the back here, and they're used as like a brake for the winch drum that we're going to put together later. So they drop in right here, and it's super important to get the height right. I don't actually know the height. This does go all the way down this point and stop, but right here we have this notch, and there's a bunch of belay pins that will go in to a whole bunch of stuff we're going to build on the side here. So I've opted to leave this loose, and I'll set the height with the belay pins and the pawls when we build all the rest of this stuff. But in the meantime, the bell's in, and that's great. Moving forward up on the bow here, we have the little assembly for the bowsprit. This is not particularly complicated. You put it together, do a little shaping up here, and then it gets glued into position, and you just push it down all the way, and you're set. Nice and secure like that. Boom. So that's what we've got going on so far right here. And then we're going to move on to some, all this is done on page 56 of the instructions. And then we're going to move on to the more complicated stuff right here on page 57. This is the stuff I'm talking about here. And I finally found out the names of these things. This is the staghorn cleat beams that I went ahead and installed earlier. I didn't realize that they were instructions down the road, but that's what these little parts are right here that look really dope on both sides. So yeah, we're good to go. So anyway, next up is to move on to the octagonal winch drum. We'll get that set up and just kind of build up this whole little area right here, and we'll use that to set this height. All right, pressing on. All right, folks, moving along, we have our pieces here for basically the winch and windlass. And the winch assembly is this nice photo etch part, 3D printed resin part that's all set and ready to go. This whole thing kind of, you can look at the instructions on page 57, but you know, this goes in here like this and like this, and then these blocks lock it in, and then we have these parts for our that stick in here that require a little bit of fitting, but therefore our belay pins, the rails, and they attach to the bell tower that I assembled and put on the ship earlier, which is why I left it loose so we could figure out how to get the height right. So I've gone ahead and cleaned all of this stuff up. What has to happen now is this needs to get painted. What I'm going to do is prime it here with a metal primer. This stuff is a little bit thicker. It goes on, I use a brush, and it'll make sure everything sticks to this nicely. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this set, which I've had on the channel here before. Old Weathered Wood Volume 1 from AK. You've got these examples and some cool things on the back, and then these are the colors inside. But basically, I'm going to be mixing up paint and monkeying around and trying to match this pear wood as best as I possibly can. In the instructions, they went with a nice deep darker color, kind of mahogany, which is like basically what I did with the ship's wheel, but I want to try and make this stuff match up as closely as possible. So that's what's going to be happening next. Pressing on. Okay, back in action. Like I said in the last segment, I went ahead and spent a bunch of time painting the windlass here to look like wood. And the goal was to make the wood match basically the pear wood that we have here. And I think I've accomplished that. So I wanted to show you here, because obviously I didn't show you how I painted it. The primary colors, I dug through and turned out, you want to go ahead and prime the windlass first, but then this AK or RLM 79 1942 ended up being the primary color. And then AK, what is it, 11402 Light Flesh ended up being the kind of over undertone mixed together. I have black uniform base here that we used for the iron parts. And then the big key to tying the whole thing together is Alclad 2 lacquer, clear flat. This gets sprayed over the entirety of this thing and it gives it a nice even tone. By the way, pro tip for aircraft folks, if you paint your airplane, if it's camouflage, gloss coat, put on your decals, use your setting solution, let it all set up, and clear coat with this Alclad 2 when you're done, I guarantee you your decals will look like they were painted on the aircraft. It's crazy. All right, while that happened, we're going to move over here. So we have all these little parts. I forget what they're called, but they're tie-offs, and I've gone ahead and did a little shaping and glued them into position. They all get painted black, but I figured you would see that now before we moved forward. So the big thing at this point is putting this together, and the tough part, getting the belay pin rails to go in and match up with our bell tower, which is located right here that I've dropped into position. These little slots kind of determine where everything goes. So yeah, let's figure that out. All right, here's what I figured out. So I took one of these side pieces, and the first thing you need to know is there needs to be a little bit of a bevel put into position. Then I went ahead and slid in our belay pin rail all the way flush with this outside, and I came down here and slid it in like so that the belay pin rail goes all the way in here and is flush with the outside. And then what I was able to do is I could move this little deal with the for the bell up and down to get it flush. I also checked, if you do this and you get it all square and plumbed up this way, when you go to install the windlass, it will fit in position in between the two. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll repeat it over here on the other side so that we can go ahead and get this whole assembly put together. That's the idea. Pressing on. Okay, so this worked as intended. I glued the rails to these outside supports first, let them set up, and then I glued them one at a time to the bell housing and moved it up and down and made sure that they were plumb as best as I could. So now the bell housing has no glue on it at all. There's nothing holding it in position except for friction. So I'm just going to dump a little pile of CA glue around the edge here just to kind of lock it into place. And that should take care of it, like so. And then we've just got some hardware and things to put in. So now this is the winch. I'm just going to pick some arbitrary position. Obviously, I'll select whatever looks best. So it pops in there like that, right? And then you've got these pieces. You'll have to glue them in. Use some CA glue, but with some wood glue to lock them into position. I don't think that's going to stay because it's going to... But anyway, you get the idea. That's where it goes, right? So then there's these paws, little photo etched black paws that go in here for the clicking of the ratcheting motion. And we stick our belay pins in here. So that's it. That was how we got this whole piece to do its thing right there. So I'm going to double check the instructions, but I'm going to go ahead and button all of this up. All right, pressing on. All right, folks, we're back. Everything, all the belay pins are in, everything's glued together. Right now there's just a clear coat of varnish kind of drying on everything. But yeah, that's it. This is the big push here on the deck. So we're all good there. The bell doesn't ring, but it wiggles as the sea goes. We've got our hatch covers and grating in. We've got our pumps should we spring a leak. Hopefully not. We've got our ladders so we can go upstairs. Yeah, that's nice, right? And then there's Another look at the blade pins and the wheel in the back and our rigging and all that. And of course, yes, it still works. I never get tired of it. That's why I do it all the time. So, yeah, we're good. This turned out really nice. And then this is the chimney for the stove, which apparently is up in the bow for the galley. So, that's it. That takes care of the main pieces to the deck. And I've also gone ahead, like, I don't know if you can see right here, there's a couple of dead eyes, little loops and one up here in the bow on both sides for the rigging. You need to pay attention to the plans for that. There's a couple here in the very back and everything. Just putting all those things in ahead of time so I don't discover the hard way that I didn't include it yet. So that's it. That takes care of the deck, except for our guns. We need to build the cannons. So I'm going to do that in the next episode. And once the cannons are done, I think we'll do some prep here, get the big dead eyes and stuff installed and the hardware along the hull for the rigging, and we'll begin following the instructions to rig this ship up and get the masts and bowsprit and everything put in place. So this is a big deal. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.